Right now, over $3 billion in luxury beauty inventory from brands like Chanel and La Mer is secretly being liquidated at a fraction of the cost. This isn't a sale, it's the financial crash of the prestige sector, forcing conglomerates to dump millions of unsold units. We reveal the internal documents and chemical formulas that prove how the billion-dollar beauty illusion shattered, and which major house will be acquired or disappear next. The $3 billion beauty betrayal. Luxury inventory is being dumped. This is the shocking financial truth behind the vanity of the luxury sector. Over $3 billion in luxury beauty inventory, from near-expiry creams to overstock serums, is currently being dumped into the gray market. The problem is simple. Nobody is buying the $500 face creams anymore. This is not a slight sales slump. It is an existential inventory crisis, forcing prestige brands to liquidate goods for pennies on the dollar. For years, houses like Chanel and Dior Beauty operated on a principle of manufactured scarcity and inflated perceived value, raising prices arbitrarily, with their 2024 price hikes yielding no corresponding product improvement. This calculated inflation was driven by executive belief that prestige immunity would protect them from consumer scrutiny, a belief that proved fatally wrong. The sheer volume of this distressed inventory is staggering, representing the equivalent of 3 full years of total sales for several mid-tier luxury brands combined. Retail contracts often prevent these liquidations from occurring through authorized channels, forcing brands to use clandestine third-party brokers who specialize in moving high-end goods discreetly across borders and into unauthorized discount stores. The result is catastrophic brand dilution, where goods sold for 40% off at an unauthorized outlet signal to the full-price buyer that the product was never worth the original price to begin with, destroying perceived value instantly. But the middle-class consumer, the aspirational buyer who made up over 60% of their volume, has walked away. They have become ingredient literate, opting to spend $50 on clinical, proven serums rather than $300 for La Mer's signature Crème de la Mer, whose primary ingredients are readily available: mineral oil and petroleum jelly. The cost difference represents pure, unjustified marketing spend, now exposed. The only thing left for the luxury conglomerates is the desperate, discreet sale to liquidators, effectively sabotaging their own brand prestige and causing the destruction of all long-term value. This liquidation channel, often involving backdoor deals with off-price retailers, risks long-term brand equity for short-term financial relief, accelerating the crash. The market is now being flooded with products that undermine the notion of luxury exclusivity. This is a 5-alarm financial fire that management teams are attempting to hide from public quarterly reports. Now we look at who exactly manufactured that illusion: the cult status brands that built empires on hype. The end of the routine, how consumer trust collapsed. The single most damning consumer behavior statistic is this: Google Trends data reveals online searches for luxury skincare alternatives jumped by an estimated 300% in the last quarter of the year. This shift signals the wholesale rejection of the complex, expensive, and time-consuming 10-step routine that brands like Tatcha and Solwasu once successfully marketed to the Western aspirational buyer. Consumers, particularly Gen Z and millennials, are now prioritizing efficacy and ingredient value over aspirational packaging and brand lore, fueling a systemic collapse in the overall prestige beauty segment. The industry's relentless promotion of layered, expensive routines was seen not as self-care, but as financial coercion once ingredient transparency became mainstream. While the overall United States prestige market saw growth of 9% in the first quarter of 2024, most of that growth was isolated in the fragrance category and heavily discounted gift sets. This shows that consumers still desire luxury scent, a high-experience, non-functional item, but reject high-cost functional products unless heavily marked down. The core skincare sector, which accounts for over 40% of the global beauty market, has shown significant deceleration, with some reports detailing outright revenue declines in key markets, like China, which saw a negative 6% performance in the first half of 2024 for the prestige segment. This reversal is especially damaging, as China was long viewed as the final, untouchable growth engine for Western luxury goods. Sales forecasts that were built on the assumption of continued double-digit growth in Asia are now completely invalid, leading to widespread investment pullbacks. The reliance on high-volume, multi-product consumption to drive revenue has failed, leaving companies with bloated infrastructure designed for a consumer behavior that no longer exists. Consumers are not quitting skincare. They are actively trading down. They are using their smart devices to expose the simple, cheap formulas in creams costing $400, and are instead flooding stores to buy scientifically proven, single-ingredient serums for under $20. This decisive move towards skinimalism, a simplified, ingredient-focused routine, has cut the average number of products per routine nearly in half, obliterating demand for expensive, redundant steps and starving legacy brands of easy, guaranteed revenue. This is the end of the beauty ritual as we know it, and the next chapter reveals exactly who educated the consumer: the ingredient watchdog, cleanwashing, and ingredient scrutiny. Why buyers walked away. The defining moment in this collapse was the rise of the ingredient watchdog. When cosmetic chemists and dermatologists went viral on platforms like TikTok and YouTube, their sharp, easily digestible critiques shattered the veil of luxury mystique. One viral quote perfectly summarized the deception. "You're paying $500 for what is functionally a small dose of peptide in a base of water and silicone." Water and silicone are used as low-cost fillers that create an initial luxurious feel, but provide zero long-term functional value for a $500 cost. This exposed the industry's central flaw. Decades-old formulas, which cost pennies to manufacture, were still being marketed at exorbitant prices under the guise of prestige. This practice, known as cleanwashing, was the core scandal. Cleanwashing refers specifically to the use of ambiguous, natural-sounding marketing language to justify premium pricing, without including sufficient concentrations of clinically effective ingredients. Brands like Guerlain and Augustinus Bader charged hundreds of dollars, relying purely on heritage or celebrity endorsement, while consumers realized The Ordinary and Paula's Choice offered superior active ingredients like retinol and vitamin C at prices under $30. This scientific democratization gave the average consumer laboratory-grade knowledge, rendering high-cost secret formulas obsolete. The industry fundamentally underestimated the consumer's capacity for technical education and their willingness to prioritize a certificate of analysis over a sleek advertising campaign. The public realization that a luxury item's high price primarily funds its packaging and advertising, not its science, instantly invalidated the entire aspirational model. The timeline illustrates the rapid consumer shift. From 2023 to the present, extreme skepticism driven by public ingredient breakdowns took hold. The focus on transparency has forced a shift from opaque, proprietary blends to openly listing key active percentages, something many luxury brands simply cannot do without exposing their diluted value. This new transparency meant that 64% of consumers surveyed no longer believe premium beauty products are higher performing than mass market ones. Consumers didn't just walk away, they were educated out of the market. And the first to face complete brand failure? The cult status brands built entirely on hype. The hype hangover, the problem of cult status brands. The first major category of collapse involves the cult status brands, the ones built entirely on hype, exclusivity, and bright packaging. Brands like Drunk Elephant and Glow Recipe became victims of their own success, failing to innovate and remaining stuck, selling old, often fruit extract-heavy formulas at exorbitant prices. The irony is financial. Drunk Elephant's target audience, Generation Z, now considers their $68 Proteini polypeptide cream too expensive for its basic formula. The youthful consumer segment, despite high average social media engagement, is proving highly budget-conscious and fiercely loyal to value-driven dupes, creating a zero-sum competition with legacy brands. They have been brutally cannibalized by accessible dupes from competitors that offer the same active ingredients for under $20. The lack of intellectual property protecting their recipes made them vulnerable to these cheaper, faster-to-market alternatives. Meanwhile, the air of absolute mystique surrounding La Mer, a brand whose core moisturizer is estimated to cost just $3 to produce, but retails for over $500, has utterly dissolved. The brand's sales declines have been masked within larger conglomerate reports, but analyst estimates suggest a year-over-year revenue drop of at least 15% for its core product line in North America. This descent represents over $100 million in lost annual revenue just in the North American market alone, a staggering blow to the perceived invincibility of ultimate luxury. Their failure to integrate modern actives like stabilized retinoids or advanced peptide chains into their core offerings left them technologically lagging behind competitors, charging 1/5 the price. The very cult status that made them exclusive also made them predictable, preventing the agile evolution required to keep pace with clinical breakthroughs. These brands were founded on the promise of a secret ingredient or a unique proprietary blend. But when that secret was exposed by ingredient watchdog groups and consumers saw readily available peptides or basic silicone, the justification for the immense price vanished. They created an audience that valued branding over chemistry, but the market has demanded proof. But the brands that truly deserved to fall were the ones that had been cheating the longest, selling history instead of science. And right behind the cult brands came the biggest offenders of all, the celebrity lines. The celebrity line nightmare, from red carpet to clearance rack. The second great failure is the celebrity line nightmare, the toxic relationship between massive overproduction and instant discounting. The visual contrast is stark. A product, like an eyeshadow palette from Kylie Cosmetics or a foundation from Fenty Beauty, displayed on the red carpet one month and seen in a steep discount bin at an off-price retailer the next. The core failure of these celebrity ventures was prioritizing massive production volume over sustained quality or scarcity. Analysts estimate that, following initial launches, many celebrity beauty brands maintained an inventory-to-sales ratio that was over 20% higher than the industry average. This financial miscalculation was based on unrealistic sustained demand projections, treating the entire market as one perpetual launch event. The lack of consistent, high-quality core products meant that once the initial celebrity-driven hype cycle ended, sales collapsed immediately, leaving warehouses overflowing. This massive overstock created an addiction to discounting. These brands were forced to damage the entire prestige segment by conditioning consumers to expect continuous 50% off flash sales, effectively making full-price purchases for any luxury item seem foolish. In 2023, discount retailers reported a 22% increase in distressed beauty inventory acquisitions. This unprecedented flow of cheap, branded products created severe channel conflict, meaning department stores could no longer sell the same items at full price because off-price retailers already had them deeply discounted. This influx of high-volume, deeply discounted products has permanently reset consumer price anchors, particularly in the Gen Z segment that celebrity brands rely on. The pursuit of maximum publicity and immediate market saturation through poor inventory management destroyed the fundamental pricing power of the entire prestige segment. The inventory pileup resulting from poor planning and a glut of poor quality, quickly launched products is now being liquidated aggressively, turning aspirational makeup into clearance rack clutter. This addiction to the markdown, led by the celebrity houses, meant that when a true financial downturn hit, the traditional old guard heritage brands had no defenses left. The old guard's fatal flaw: heritage brands ignoring science. The failure of the old guard heritage brands is a case study in market arrogance. They relied on decades of built-in brand loyalty while flatly refusing to adopt modern clinical standards. The evidence is clearest in key Asian markets. For the Japanese conglomerate Shiseido Group, its 2023 full-year net sales dropped by nearly 9% year-over-year. Even more dramatically, its prestigious brand SK-II saw sales plummet by 34% in Greater China in 1 quarter alone. These brands were blindsided by the speed at which the Asian consumer, historically the most brand loyal, shifted preference to functional Korean and Japanese clinical alternatives. The conglomerates failed to understand that the modern consumer views a lack of clinical trial data as proof of product inferiority, regardless of the brand's French or Japanese pedigree. These houses, like SK-II and Estée Lauder, demanded consumers pay a premium for their history, their elaborate packaging, and their celebrity ambassadors, but not for cutting-edge efficacy. Their high price tag is now perceived by educated consumers as paying for the illusion of science rather than actual, verifiable, clinical performance. They failed to invest in research and development at the pace of agile, science-forward competitors. Specifically, their R&D budgets remained disproportionately allocated to fragrance and packaging aesthetics rather than ingredient stability or delivery systems, sacrificing function for form. This strategic negligence allowed functional value brands like The Ordinary and Paula's Choice to easily steal market share. The new guard offered potent 10% niacinamide or clinical-grade retinoids for $25, while the heritage brands were still selling $200 moisturizers based on 50-year-old formulas. The core problem was an unwillingness to swap expensive packaging and marketing budgets for genuine scientific innovation, betting that legacy alone would suffice. This refusal to adapt has created a chasm between a product's historical price and its current scientific worth, making the heritage brands the most obvious financial targets for consumer abandonment. The consumer is now asking, why pay for history when I can pay for results? This price-to-value mismatch created the pricing paradox that ultimately led to the entire market's revolt. The pricing paradox: price hikes without product value. The final economic self-sabotage was the pricing paradox. Luxury houses raised prices arbitrarily without providing any product value. The price trajectory for core products from high-fashion beauty houses like Dior Beauty and Chanel Beauty skincare provides stark evidence. From 2020 to 2024, the average cost of their high-end moisturizers increased by an estimated 28%. Brands used supply chain disruptions and general inflation as an excuse for this aggressive inflation. However, internal cost analysis estimates suggest that the actual cost of goods sold only rose by around 7% during the same period, meaning the vast majority of the price hike was pure arbitrary profit margin expansion. This margin expansion was viewed by executive teams as a necessary way to maintain profitability targets despite declining volume, a classic financial trap that ignores consumer resentment. This margin inflation was a direct extraction of wealth from the aspirational consumer, who now feels financially betrayed by brands they once adored. The consumer revolt was swift. Market data indicates a significant trade-down behavior, with 41% of consumers stating they actively sought high-street alternatives after a luxury brand raised its price. The core of the anger was the perception of disrespect. For example, a major social media controversy erupted when a popular Shiseido sub-brand was found to have simultaneously raised the price of a core serum by $10, while shrinking the product volume by nearly 15 milliliters. This egregious example of shrinkflation became a viral rallying point for consumers to expose luxury deception across all sectors, accelerating the loss of trust. The consumer had been paying for prestige. When the brands tried to sneak price increases and volume cuts, the consumer calculated they were simply paying for corporate greed. This aggressive profit-taking forced the hands of high-end retailers, who now face their own apocalypse. They are being forced to turn once exclusive boutique floors into conspicuous clearance zones. The retail apocalypse. High-end boutiques are now clearance zones. The vivid descriptive image is unavoidable. The once prestigious luxury beauty floor of high-end department stores like Neiman Marcus and Harrods now looks conspicuously empty, with discreet, often 50% markdowns on what were once $400 products from Guerlain or La Prairie. This is the retail apocalypse. The high-end retail environment has decisively shifted from experiential luxury to utilitarian clearance. Insider leaks from major retail chains confirm the panic. A veteran buyer for a major East Coast luxury chain confirms department store buyers have enacted massive cuts, reducing next season's luxury beauty orders by an estimated 20 to 25% between 2022 and 2024, focusing instead on high-margin, less risky categories like fragrance. This reduction in orders is creating severe cash flow problems for smaller luxury suppliers who relied on these large anchor accounts. The decline of the luxury beauty counter is also fueling mass layoffs among sales associates, further eroding the experience brands once sold. The prestige counter, the central pillar of luxury beauty, is no longer a place of discovery, but a zone of high anxiety. Crucially, the truly wealthy clientele, the consumers these brands claim to serve, are bypassing these brands entirely. They are now opting for highly customized, bespoke compounding pharmacy solutions that deliver clinical-grade ingredients like high-concentration retinoids and peptides tailored to their genetic blueprint, completely removing the brand name and the accompanying 300% markup. This high-end shift demonstrates that for the top 1%, genuine value has become entirely personalized and independent of any retail brand name. The compounding pharmacy market is projected to reach $31.77 billion by 2034, underscoring the demand for true personalization over mass prestige. The disappearance of the ultra-wealthy buyer leaves the mass-market luxury segment fully exposed to the financial weaknesses of the aspirational buyer. This move by the rich proves there is no value in the luxury illusion, leaving the aspirational middle market, the ones still shopping at Sephora and Ulta, to simply wait for the inevitable, deeper discounts. This leaves only one question: which of the collapsing brands is facing extinction? The price of illusion. Which brands are facing extinction? The bold prediction is a financial certainty. At least 3 major luxury beauty brands will be either acquired at fire sale prices or will disappear entirely within the next 18 months. The companies most exposed to this risk are not the large conglomerates like L'Oréal or Estée Lauder, but their struggling sub-brands and the smaller, debt-burdened, celebrity-backed ventures. Reports from 2024 and 2025 show that private equity financial sponsors stepped back from beauty mergers and acquisitions amid market uncertainty, putting pressure on highly leveraged companies to perform or experience business failure. Analysts point to brands whose core technology has been easily copied or whose marketing spend far outweighs their efficacy as primary takeover targets. Specific celebrity lines that failed to secure secondary funding rounds are now considered financially unviable, with private equity firms waiting for bankruptcy to buy assets at rock-bottom prices. Brands that once relied on packaging and perfume over science are now desperately attempting to relaunch their core products, trying to imitate the language and clean design of successful high-science brands like Tatcha and Augustinus Bader. This desperate pivot is too late. Consumers can spot the difference between the original TFC8 technology in Augustinus Bader's creams and a newly rebranded old formula. Investors are now wary of the entire illusion-based sector, citing poor long-term margins and damaged prestige as major risks. The consensus among financial institutions is that the capital required to re-establish broken trust is simply too great, making it cheaper to invest in a newcomer than to salvage a legacy. The overall valuation of luxury beauty portfolio brands has been downgraded across the board, signaling a long-term recession for the sector based on outdated business models. The only deals still closing are those that involve buying technology or clean ingredient supply chains, not marketing-heavy consumer brands. With over 85% of new consumers prioritizing proven efficacy over legacy, the investment reality has completely shifted. The money is no longer chasing brand name, it is chasing biotech. The price of the illusion has been calculated, and the final warning is that this market will never be the same. Final warning: the luxury beauty market will never be the same. The final warning to the former luxury titans is this core truth: the beauty consumer is now fundamentally smarter than the beauty brand. The systemic collapse of inventory and prestige is the lasting market implication. Discounting is no longer an occasional incentive. It is the expected baseline price for illusion-based luxury. This shift is permanent. The new standard for premium is a decisive move from the best brand to the best ingredient, backed by clinical proof. We are witnessing an explosive, data-driven migration. Brands focused on bioactive ingredients like PDRN saw search growth volume increase by over 3,000%, demonstrating a clear consumer preference for advanced science over heritage branding. This focus on specific molecules like ceramides, peptides, and advanced retinoids shows that the consumer is now their own formulator. Venture capital firms confirm this trend. Brands focused on science-led claims gain 2.5 times as much funding as those focused solely on natural or sustainable claims. The future market will be fragmented, decentralized, and led by small, agile companies with verifiable supply chains and laboratory partnerships rather than massive conglomerates. The future of luxury has nothing to do with fancy packaging or decades of history. It is a clinical and highly personalized experience. Companies like Dior and new biotech skincare lines are set to replace the collapsing illusion-based giants like La Mer and Drunk Elephant. These new players succeed by vertically integrating science and supply chain, ensuring quality and transparency from laboratory to consumer, something legacy brands are too slow to manage. They offer transparency, measurable results, and highly concentrated activities like 1% retinol at a fair price. The financial shift proves that the aspirational budget formerly spent on 3 expensive moisturizers is now being allocated to 1 bespoke serum and 2 affordable, active-rich products. The luxury cosmetic market is projected to grow, but only by adapting to e-commerce and prioritizing advanced technologies like nanotechnology and ingredient synthesis, confirming that scientific credibility is the only viable path forward. The consumer has voted with their wallet. The era of paying hundreds of dollars for water, silicone, and a story is officially over. The inventory dumping, the price hikes, and the customer revolt prove the luxury beauty market will never be the same. If you want to keep watching investigations like this into retail failures and market collapses, hit the subscribe button now and tell us in the comments, which luxury brand did you finally abandon when you realized the value just wasn't there?